Thank you so much. There is nothing more that I love than being a wife and a mother and a supporter to caregivers, so I thank you in advance for having me. I come from a blended family. I say the Brady Bunch on steroids for anybody who's old in the room. I am one of 10 siblings, including my half-siblings, step-siblings, and one full sister. I guess in more modern terms, you could say we were a NutriBullet family, blended and blended and blended. Not always super smooth, though. My parents divorced when I was little, so I often referred to my family as my mom's side and my dad's side. And attending Catholic school for 8 years with a multi-divorced single mom and a multi-divorced Jewish dad, well, felt a little strange. I felt very different from my peers, needless to say. And I hated being different. So I created my first tribe of girlfriends who also came from divorce and unique family scenarios, and they became my substitute family. It was so comforting. I felt a sense of belonging that I was craving. And that practice just literally grew throughout high school and college and into married life. I became very passionate about the friendship of women and being connected to community, as I call it, and the importance of just finding my tribe and having others find their tribe. When I married the love of my life, Chris, who I've been married to for 26 years now, and we have 3 beautiful children, I was very eager to create what I didn't have. I wanted a tight, nuclear, traditional, committed, close family. My perfectionism was definitely in overdrive, and I had a fairy tale wedding and honeymoon. 3 years into my motherhood, with the birth of my second son, Ryan, my picture-perfect world that I was trying so hard to create and control was shattered, and a diagnosis was delivered. Once again, I felt different. I was surrounded by typical moms and typical children, and I just felt like an outsider. I felt different once again, which I hated. Although I had very caring and sweet and supportive people around me, what I really needed were people who spoke the same language as me, who could validate my grief, who understood what I was going through, and who could just get me, right? Get me. And I didn't have anyone, of course, except for my husband, Chris, not until I went to my very first support group. The loneliness of onlyness is detrimental to our physical and our mental health. Somewhere deep inside of me, I must have understood that truth because we went to our first support group a month after Ryan's diagnosis. Filled with fear and sadness and worry, we walked into that bottom floor meeting room, and I don't know who we thought was going to greet us, but they were all so refreshingly normal and smiley and happy and so warm and so inviting. With Ryan on my lap, I gazed at my new family, my new tribe, one that I didn't sign up for, but I was suddenly so relieved to have. We were a blended family bound by a fluky genetic mutation. So I'm a natural gatherer and connector. It comes out of my family of origin story, like I shared. I'm genuinely passionate about the friendship of women and creating and building life-giving friendships. Maybe for you, it is not natural. Maybe for you, it's scary. Maybe it just sounds exhausting. Maybe right now you feel like running into a different breakout session, but I encourage you to please stay. Please don't leave. Connection and community have literally saved me. This is why I launched We Are Brave Together to support caregiving moms. In my 20-year journey as Ryan's mom, he'll be 20 on Tuesday, and all the other crises that our family has been through, I could not, and I would not be standing here today if I had not found my people. I want this for you. I want this for every rare disease parent. Actually, I want this for every human being. It's our hope, it's our strength, it's our lifeline, and it's our path to not only surviving, but thriving amidst chronic hardship. We are all looking for belonging, a sense of belonging, a feeling of belonging. This is human nature, and it is our birthright to find a place where we belong. Let me tell you a story. So, in the beginning of the pandemic, it came to light that my daughter, who was 14 at the time, was suffering pretty heavily with depression and anxiety. And she'd been suffering for quite a while. It wasn't brought on just by the pandemic. It was probably exacerbated. But as siblings do, they tend to hide what's going on. Now, that is a topic for another day. Invite me back next year, and I'll talk about siblings. But anyway, it came to light, and we were shocked. We were scared. I wondered who I was going to talk to. Yes, I have great people in my life. And I, chose to share with a couple key people because it's her story. I couldn't exactly go on Facebook and say, my daughter is depressed and anxious and I need a friend who's been through this with her kid, right? Well, I remembered a mom in We Are Brave who was very open about her daughter's struggles with mental health. So I called her up and I pretended that I was asking for somebody else in We Are Brave. So I'm asking her a million questions, taking furious notes, talking about doctors' treatments, treatment center, just all of it. And then she was local to me, so we went on a walk. So I'm asking her questions, continuing my facade, and then all of a sudden I just blurted out, it's Kate. It's Kate who needs help. It's our family. We're the ones who are struggling. And I just started crying. And I just exhaled so much anxiety because it felt so good to get it out and to be with someone who had already been through it. Stephanie became my person, and she's been my person for the last 3 years, and I am eternally grateful. That is why conventions like this are so critical. You are surrounded by people walking similar paths. It is comforting, I believe, and freeing to be in community with others who are in similar circumstances. And we learn so much from each other. Again, not a club we ever wanted to be in, but yet when we share our stories and experiences together, we are strengthened, we are empowered, we are resourced. So let's talk about 3 reasons why you don't want to find community. You are too busy and probably exhausted. You are afraid you will become more sad. You have been burned before. So number 1, you are too busy. I know. You have thousands of appointments, therapies, IPs, time spent fighting insurance companies or state agencies, activities, sports, tutors, other kids, family commitments, possibly aging parents, not to mention if you are working part-time or full-time. I get it. You are stretched thin, like a balloon that is blown up so tight that if you simply blow on it or breathe on it or whisper next to it, it's going to pop. I understand that feeling. It is very understandable how we as caregivers fall into the doing trap. Our culture perpetuates this, and the martyr motherhood philosophy just furthers this give until you die and don't think about yourself at all. Plus, the truth is, our kids' diagnosis requires a lot of us. Too much. I want you to understand that doing is a defense mechanism against your grief. When we live on spin cycle for our families, it's a good way to avoid feeling anything. I've done this. I lost my sister in January of this year, suddenly, unexpectedly. I allowed myself a month to slow way, way down and cry and grieve, and I did. But then, by mid-February, I went right back into high-functioning, high-work mode. It was a defense mechanism against my grief. Number 2, you are afraid you will become more sad. When we are in community with others in the PWS world or disability world, it makes it real. It means we can no longer deny what is going on in our life and with our child. We can't deny that our child has a difficult lifelong diagnosis. We come face to face with this reality of our altered parenthood journey, as I call it. We are forced to accept this new life. And you might think to yourself, if I hear the woes, if I hear the wonders, if I hear the what ifs of other parents in some sort of support group in person or online, it's going to take me down. It might, or it might not. Research and psychologists tell us that the only way to move through sadness and grief is to feel it, to get to the other side. It sounds really dorky, but you have to feel it to heal it. You do. If you don't, it just stays in the body, and there are consequences for that. I don't want to deny the heaviness that you might feel after attending a support group or being in a circle of other women who have children or with disabilities or PWS. I don't want to deny that. And I believe that there are tools that you can employ so that you do not take on everyone's pain. I am an empath. And in leading We Are Brave Together, I have heard hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mom stories. I like nothing more than to sit down with a mom or get on the phone or FaceTime or Zoom chat with a mom who's struggling. I want to be there. I want to support. And I have learned how not to take on everyone's story. And there are tools that you can employ. I don't want you to avoid community because you're afraid of hearing other people's stories. Because when you hear other people's stories, you hear their strength, you hear their tenacity, you hear their endurance and perseverance, you hear their humor, hopefully, in the midst of all of this. Number 3, you've been burned before. Perhaps you have tried a support group or a Facebook group online. Perhaps you were pounced on by other people's experiences and problem solving, and what you really wanted was somebody to just say, I see you, I hear you, I understand you, and just validate what you're going through. Maybe you feel allergic to the idea of community or sisterhood because your own friends have fallen away, or they've expressed cliches and simplistic platitudes. Or they have a real disconnect with your pain, and all of this is brewing together and making you just want to stay away from everybody. Maybe you had a sister or a mother who were difficult, and it scarred you. This is so understandable. When we have been wounded in friendship, the idea of tribe or sisterhood sounds scary and maybe even a little threatening. So, several years ago, 2 very close friends of mine, women I had done life deeply with for years, burned me. And it stung. It caused me to question myself, someone who preaches the friendship of women, someone who believes that when you leave competition and cattiness and comparison behind, that the intersection of our lives is a gift. How did this happen to me? How would I recover? What did I do that could possibly contribute to this or allow for this? Honestly, I still wrestle with this today. And yet, I still have other faithful, loving, supportive, compassionate, funny women in my life. I still invest, I still trust, I still believe that life is richer and more resilient when we have deep connections. If you are too busy, too afraid to feel, and too afraid to trust that others will truly be there for you, this leaves you very, very isolated and lonely. You are not alone in this. I bet if we had a show of hands, in this room or in this conference, there are many who are feeling this way. Before we step into the reasons why you must find community, I want to pause for a little bit of self-compassion. I'm not here to beat you up for being busy and tired and scared and afraid to try. I'm just here pointing out the obstacles that get in our way. So I want you all to close your eyes, and I want you to just listen and take this in. It is so understandable that you feel this way. It is so understandable that your caregiving life is a whirlwind of activities and gigantic to-do lists. It is understandable that you feel so exhausted. It is so understandable that you are afraid to seek out a supportive community. It is understandable that you feel alone. And it is so understandable that you do not even know where to begin to find your people. Okay, open your eyes now. Pausing and practicing a little self-compassion is like a giant exhale, and it is very soothing to the nervous system. So, 3 reasons why you must find your community. You deserve it. It is critical to your physical and mental health, and it is an act of rebellion and self-compassion. I audaciously say that if you are the caregiver, you're the most important person in the family. I believe that. If you go down, then the whole minivan crashes and burns, and then somebody is going to have to come in and help and take care of your kids. Therefore, you deserve to take care of your basic human needs. And one of those is a sense of belonging. No one will do this for you, unfortunately. You have to decide that you deserve it, and that it is essential to your altered parenting journey. When you meet other parents, well, I say in We Are Brave, when you meet other girlfriends who get you, or girlfriends who get you are sacred and mandatory. For this, I say when you meet other parents, and I can't find my slide, who get you and get your story, it is comforting and transformative. I mean, you probably feel that here at this convention. You're surrounded by people who are in similar circumstances, even though maybe the expression of PWS looks differently and are different children, and maybe our caregiving might look a little bit different, but you can look around the room and you're like, yeah, you totally understand. Nobody else at home understands this crazy PWS thing, but you do, and I'm so grateful. You're walking it too, you're fighting too, you're loving hard too. I think that there's something magical about being in each other's physical presence and seeing and hearing each other's voices and stories. I wish I could quote a Harvard study for you on this phenomenon, but I'm sure it exists. I'm sure it's out there. I can tell you that over the 6 years that I have been leading We Are Brave together, and I've heard testimonial after testimonial from women who have attended our support groups or our retreats, that it was life-changing to be in the presence of other caregiving moms. You deserve this. You take meticulous care of your children. You deserve to take meticulous care of yourselves. It is critical to your mental and physical health, like I said. I'm going to keep saying that. The way I see it, you have a choice. You can either smoke 15 cigarettes a day or find community. Because the Surgeon General has said that loneliness and isolation are as detrimental to your mental and physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And that's for a regular person. You're a caregiver. You've got the mental load, the emotional load, the financial load, the physical load. Other studies state that loneliness and isolation are twice as harmful to physical and mental health as obesity. One epidemiologist linked loneliness to a 30% increase in the risk for coronary artery disease or stroke. Loneliness can augment and increase depression or anxiety, and as you know, depression and anxiety and lack of connectedness can lead to addiction. In the PWS world of caregiving, we're very worried about obesity, preventing obesity, treating obesity, the medical side effects of obesity. We must be as concerned and intentional about our own mental and physical health. We live with such vigilance. Who's in the locked kitchen phase? Anyone else in the locked kitchen phase? So there's a vigilance with which we live, and it requires so much attention and security, even if you're not in the locked kitchen phase. It requires attention. You're always creating food security. You have PhDs in behavior management by now. I mean, it requires so much. We are on. We take our daily lives seriously. We take our caretaking roles very seriously. I know you love so hard and so passionately. We take our jobs or our careers seriously. And we must take our own health just as seriously. It's a vicious and scary path, the way of loneliness and isolation. And although there may be very real obstacles to finding community or creating community, it is a worthwhile pursuit. You deserve to be inspired and empowered by others' stories. And the bonus, you are modeling this for the children in your family. You're modeling this for the siblings in the family who also experience a lot of stressors as well. Our children need to be taught to take care of their mental health, and our children need to know that seeking out safe, loving, supportive community is essential, worthwhile, and most likely life-changing. Number 3, it is an act of rebellion and self-compassion. We have been ingrained and indoctrinated that we must do it all. Give and do, that it's somehow a sign of guts and strength and courage. We feel like we must do it all without asking for help or needing anyone. This is a trap that we fall into. Why? How? Well, number 1, I believe it's our culture. And number 2, the not enough wound that we all battle as human beings. Has anyone ever felt like because you've perhaps shared publicly about your child's diagnosis that maybe family and friends are watching you to kind of see how you do? Especially if you're very vocal or if you're blogging, if you're on social media about it. Sometimes I think we feel as caregivers that we need to prove our worthiness by how brave we are, how we hustle as caregivers, all the things that we do for our kids. We feel like we need to prove to the world, look, I'm handling this so well, look at me, I'm so strong, I can do this. But it's a false courage. It's not real courage doing it on your own. Brené Brown, love her, read all her books, I highly recommend her. She has revolutionized the world and with her research on vulnerability and how this is the key to courage and bravery. I believe that it is an act of rebellion to vulnerably acknowledge that you need help. And help comes in many forms, and one of those forms is community. So, I have a good story for you. Women and mothers tend to be people pleasers. Dads can fall into this too. And people pleasers tend to believe that if their needs conflict with the needs of somebody else, then their needs don't matter. Okay, here's my story. So, I love yoga. I've been practicing for many, many years. And when the studios opened up again in 2021, I was dying to get out of my bedroom and into a studio and be with other people. I found a studio that was open, found some morning classes that I loved that worked with my work schedule. But guess what? Who did not like this? Ryan. He wanted me to be the only one to feed him every morning. right? That cognitive rigidity. He wanted me. He didn't like the change. I have an amazing husband. He's a very hands-on dad. We can seamlessly come in and out, and he does a great job. So it's not that. But he was giving Chris so much grief. He was having meltdowns and tantrums and whining because he wanted me, only me, to do his morning routine. My husband said, "You're not caving." Thank goodness, because he was having to deal with a lot those mornings that I was gone, right? But it was the night before, it was 2 days before. Anyway, I didn't cave. It would have been easy for me to say his need for me to be there and to be the only one to do his morning routine is high. It was high. It was a high need for Ryan. But I know that yoga keeps me grounded and grateful. And I need it for my mental health. So I kept going. Guess how long this lasted, the protesting? 3 months. We didn't cave, and now it's fine. But that was a scenario where I easily could have put Ryan's needs above my needs. Don't you feel it's quite ironic that we're given high needs children, and yet that require, I say, exponential care, but yet we're afraid of sounding needy? We are needy. We have a lot on our plate. Our culture indoctrinates us to do and give and give. And I know I keep saying this again and again, but it's a trap, and I worry about the traps that caregivers fall into. Did you know that there's something called the human giver syndrome? Has anybody heard of that? Okay, so I'm sharing something new with you. There's a book called Burnout by Dr. Emily Nagoski, and her sister Amelia wrote this book on burnout. And they define human giver syndrome as the belief you have a moral obligation to give every drop of yourself in support of others, even to your own detriment. The reason so many people feel this way is that society often links womanhood to caring, nurturing, giving. We often pick up the message, they go on to say in their book, we often pick up the message that a good daughter cares for her parents and a good mother puts her children's needs first. A good girl is considerate of her friends' needs. Being female often means being encouraged and praised for giving and caring, and we unconsciously pick up all these messages. The truth is we have needs that makes us needy, because we are beautiful human beings. This is universal. It's nothing we have to apologize for. And when you have crisis or chronic hardship, it is very easy to shove your needs way, way down. But today I'm giving you a new shovel and a bucket, and we're going to dig them out together today. I give you permission to rebel against human giver syndrome if you are identifying with that at all. This is the practice of self-compassion. Practicing self-compassion means that you recognize your needs, for one, but you recognize your need for safe, loving connections with other parents who get it. So if you are new to self-compassion, let's define that for you. I highly recommend checking out Dr. Kristen Neff, her work, her books, her website. This is something that for me has really become key in the last few years. I wish I knew this 20 years ago, but it's okay. You're never too old to learn new things and new tools, and this is a powerful tool. So self-compassion involves acting the same way towards yourself as you would a friend who's suffering, experiencing failure, or struggling in some way. You would treat yourself as you would your best friend. You feel warmth and caring and a desire to help your friend. Of course, you offer understanding and kindness rather than any judgment. We are infinite containers of compassion for our children, for our family, for our best friends. We can turn this onto ourselves. We can turn this onto our caregiving lives. Self-compassion says PWS parent friends are sacred and mandatory, period. Self-compassion says you deserve to have people in your life who truly understand you, support you, and validate you. People who are honest and humorous and joy seekers in the midst of chronic hardship. Self-compassion says you are not meant to do this alone. You would never tell your best friend to go it alone, right? You would never tell your best friend to go it alone. Isolation leads to depression and anxiety and unhealthy coping mechanisms, limiting beliefs, and feelings of intense loneliness. In our PWS world, we describe the food-seeking behavior kind of like, somebody else said this is not my own quote, but like how food is like air to a kid or adult with the syndrome. Well, research has shown that loneliness is a form of starvation. Connection is like air to human beings. And I say that community is a balm that soothes intense isolation. I am not so pie in the sky passionate about connection and community that I think it's going to solve all your problems. No, this will not change your circumstances. It will not make PWS go away. I want to acknowledge that. But it will change you. It will change you on the inside. It will uplift, preserve, and protect your mental and physical health. After hearing hundreds, thousands of mom stories, plus interviewing experts and coaches and therapists on my podcast for the last 3 years, I stand firmly by my convictions that we must take care of our inner selves and our inner lives. It's an urgent, urgent priority. If we are to withstand the wicked storms of life, and it's not just, PWS world, it's all kinds of things that happen, right? We must be anchored within, and participating in community can be an anchor for you. Like I said, I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't have people in my life, if I didn't have a text thread with other moms that I could say anything to. I could share a funny story, I could vent, I can gripe, I can complain, I can cry, I can anything. Ask questions, seek resources, and know that they're right there back for me. We all need people in our corner who remind us that yes, we can do this journey, because you're going to hit many points, or you have hit many points where you probably have doubted that. Yes, we can do this with grace, with gratitude, and with joy. If the darn pandemic taught us anything, it's that we are not meant to live or love or work or caretake in isolation. You deserve to be in community, in a supportive community. You deserve to feel a sense of belonging. You deserve to feel like you are not alone. You deserve this today. Thank you for having me.